Aloha, everyone. This is another Freedom to Feel conversation. And my guest today, once again, is Dr. Christine Silverstein. She is a peak performance coach, founder of the Summit Center for Ideal Performance. She is a behavioral health registered nurse and clinical hypnosis expert. Dr. Christine is also a researcher, published historian, and best-selling author of Wrestling Through Adversity, Empowering Children, Teens, and Young Adults to Win in Life. And you just mentioned off record that you have a new credential. Talk to me about that, Christine. Just adding to it.
Yes, I worked with neuroscience since I was a young child, really looking back when I went to nursing school at 16 and I studied anatomy and physiology. And I just loved the subject of the physical body and how it worked, but particularly the brain. So I've learned very early, my first day of nursing school, that we have to work holistically as nurses, body, mind, and spirit. As
Right.
this Catholic nun who was the instructor drew a triangle on the blackboard and said, look, body, mind, spirit, the patient is a person. And so I thought, well, what else would the patient be? But I found out the history of nursing and also the biomedical model that still exists, that people aren't treated as persons. They just are called by their diagnosis. So now I incorporated that with learning about how to work with people, but also with the brain. One of my first patients had a stroke. And here I was, this young teenager, really, walking into the room where the patient was, and for my assignment, and I had to give him morning care, and somebody had placed a breakfast tray in the room, but it was at the foot of the bed.
Yeah.
And also, the man had paralysis on one side of the body. He was drooling. He couldn't speak. He had had a stroke the night before, and there was no ICU in those days. So he was directly on the hospital floor. And I'm thinking, what do I do to care
Right.
for this person, to feed him? Because he had trouble swallowing, and I was afraid he was going to choke. And I just remembered feeling a little petrified. I just had instructions, and that's what I had to do for my assignment. But over the years after that, I work with many people who had strokes, and some of them were repeat strokes and some were initial ones. And sometimes they were younger people, not just older people who had them. I worked on a stroke unit. I worked in neurology at NYU for some time, and I dealt with a lot of neurological challenges. Now they call it neuroscience. Back then they called it neurology.
Yeah.
And and so I had to learn what to do. So I'm thinking I knew these principles before they were even
Mm.
discovered in that sense, because now we have a lot of knowledge of neuroscientific information and research, but back then they didn't. And this
Right.
is more new to the 21st century, that we're gaining more and more knowledge. So
Right.
I say that I've been working for 29 years, and that's only with my business as a peak performance coach. But as a nurse, I graduated at 19, and I was the nurse manager of a 38-bed hospital unit, medical surgical unit, when I was 22 years old. And I look back and say, how did I know how to do that? Oh my goodness. But
Yeah.
I did, and very competently as well. So I learned a lot, and I thought, well, this isn't very, interesting information. I didn't think very much of it. But now these days, I hear, oh my goodness, that, I know that when you have a stroke, for instance,
Yeah.
it affects your brain. And we're talking about not neuroscience in the brain, but what we don't talk about, and which my work involves, is working with the mind. The mind has no physiological structure in
Mm.
the skull.
Yeah.
The mind is everywhere. It's the muscle
Yeah.
memory in your body. It,
Right.
it really supports respiration, fertility, the
Mm.
heartbeat, the
Mm.
digestive system
Mm.
is
Mm.
all done by the subconscious mind,
Yeah.
so that we don't have to worry about it all day long. I better breathe, my heart better beat,
Right.
right? It's all taken care of for us. and much of the body function. So I know how to work with that, and I know how to work with people because I learned about this interpersonal communication when I was just a teenager, and I'm grateful for it now.
Mm,
And looking back in my life, because I wouldn't I've had that if I hadn't seen my friend have an epileptic seizure in the middle of the street when I was 15, and he was shaking all over, and I didn't know what to do for him. So I didn't even know he had epilepsy, and
right.
so I went home and told my mom, and my mom wanted to be a nurse, and she said, "Oh, why don't you become a nurse?" Because
Mm,
she had 5 children at a young age, and she couldn't. Um, Later on in her life, she regretted it, but she wasn't able to go to nursing school. So she had I have three older sisters, and she asked each one of them, "How about becoming a nurse?" And they didn't want to do it. They didn't like blood or whatever. But
yeah.
I said yes, and it was because of my friend and the seizure that he had.
Yeah.
So every circumstance in my life,
Mm,
when you look back, you say, "Oh, this was the beginning of that," and the pieces of the puzzle as you get older and more mature just fall together as if it was meant to be. And
right.
if you say yes to the universe, then you'll be guided and shown.
Wow. You see, I love this about you and your work. It's so natural in a sense of holistic again. We are working with all the aspects of being and not just the brain, not just the mind, not just the body, not just the heart, the soul, but everything, kind of tapping into the potential, right? The potentiality of what it
Yes.
is to be a human. It's
Hmm.
not just parts. So it's truly beautiful. I love that about you, Christine. Is that something that you were also taught by your parents? So did you have a mentor that taught you holistic being?
Well, I think it was, and as I grew in it, as I got older, I realized where it all came
Yeah,
from.
right.
But I remember I was also a student, I think I discussed, in a mental institution on Long Island when I was 18.
Yeah.
And I had to bring the patients to electroshock therapy,
Mm,
and I
right.
had to work with the young children, and I didn't believe what they were telling me back then, that you couldn't improve, that you'll be here forever in the mental institution, that you can't recover from a stroke. And for
Yeah.
some reason, I just said that that's impossible. Of course you can. And I believed in that. And so I always worked towards that. There is part of it is hope, but also the other part of it is knowing what to do, that
Yeah.
you can talk to the mind, and you can combine the left brain and the right brain like I do with my mindful toughness techniques, and
Yeah.
that it's a one brain but
Mhm.
in one mind. They work together, they all work together in harmony,
Mm.
and that's what you can do. Speaking the language of dreams, which I do with my
Mm.
clients as a
Yeah.
hypnotherapist, and
Yeah.
those are the ways to actually help yourself to heal. And that is through imagery, through metaphors,
Mm.
signs, stories,
Mm.
and symbols.
Mm.
Those are the
Mm.
5 ways to access the subconscious mind where all healing takes place, I believe.
Wow. Gosh, I love to hear that from you too as a confirmation because I've been very interested in storytelling recently. It just took over me. So I'm studying the
Hmm.
work of Carl Jung on
Hmm.
dreams. I've
Oh,
been doing a
yes.
lot of writing on my dreams when I wake up, and it's
Good.
incredible how
Hmm.
it shows, right? Tells a story, but it might be like the truest actually story about our lives, isn't it? Our belief
Hmm.
systems, where our pain
Hmm.
is, with something. It's just incredibly complex too, though, because we cannot
Yes.
get the interpretation out there, right, Christine? We needed to
Well, you
kind of.
have to interpret it, and it'll come to you in different ways. You have to be patient, though, because you might not understand it right away. Because the universe doesn't think the way we do,
Yeah.
and it has its own ways in its own time frame.
Wow. So, yeah, I'm just fascinated by storytelling, the power of it. So, I'm
It's
writing
very
short story,
powerful. Hmm.
isn't it, Christine? Oh my
Hmm.
God. I've been writing short stories about, like, I wrote a whole book about 2015 about my life and how and how bad it was, with the trauma and all those things throughout those years. And then now I'm writing a short story that kind of with metaphors, kind of telling the same story with the almost 200-page book in a very simple way, but in a way
Mhm.
that bypasses in a way the kind of bypass the logical mind and goes straight to the
That's right.
subconscious. So it is
Mhm.
helping me already. It's
Yes,
fascinating.
it helps
Fascinating.
you to relate to that, and in ways like metaphors. That's what my book is filled with, that, and also stories and pictures, imagery. I have figures in my
Yeah.
book. I have 22 figures in my book that help to trigger memories, and also to support you. Even something that the kids laugh about, the teens laugh about. I call the loose moose, which is a big
Mm,
stuffed animal moose, and he has
mm,
very long legs, and the wrestlers like
yeah.
to play with them, the younger ones, because there's such a move as putting in legs. And so they play with the moose's legs, and they decide how they're going to put
Yeah,
legs in their opponents and how they're going to get out of them should they get stuck in legs. So it's
right.
very interesting.
Wow, the imagery. That's
Mhm.
very important. Today we're talking about music, which is another way
Yes.
of exploring the inner world, right? Healing our inner
Yes.
selves. It's a powerful way, another powerful method. So the
Hmm.
chapter is titled Assessing Inner Healing Power Through Music. So let me get the cover of your book because I have all the talking points here. It's quite linear, but perhaps we can. Yeah, we started with the high energy and how to harness high energy, what to do with that, especially with ADHD.
Yes.
So many people have
That's
that
when we
problem.
talked about last time. Hmm.
Yeah. So and then goes through healing through music. And then we'll talk about. I mean, this is really what I wanted to explore with you the most: the relationship
Hmm.
between music and trauma. It has
Hmm.
been like huge for me, like this a pillar of almost like a ground that I could stand at some point because not
Hmm.
having like the support of others, I had to have music was like my guide, my therapist, my spiritual
Hmm.
teacher, everything. So it's
Hmm.
funny that we're
Well, they
talking about
call it
this.
music therapy, don't they?
Yeah, that's it. So talk to me from your
Hmm.
perspective, the way you wrote in the book. I'll have the cover of the book here because everything's in your book. So I wanted to show it. Yeah, Christine. And then we can explore that. This is chapter 9 again. So, talk to me
Yes.
about the relationship between music from your experience, of course, personally and professionally, the connection of it.
Well, music has been important to me in my life as well. My memories of being a teenager and the songs that you sang and how that can trigger you back into the past. But also, I had an experience when I was 11 years old, and we had just moved into a new home, a rental, and we lived on the second and third floor of this old Victorian house. And when I looked on the shelf of this coat closet, I saw my father's violin there in a case. And I knew he had been a violinist when he was younger, but for some reason it's up there on the shelf all by itself. And I decided to climb on a chair to see what it looked like inside the case. So I
Yeah.
took it down, and I saw that the strings were all, broken, and on the both the bow and the horsehairs, and also the catgut on the strings itself. They were all like wound up and not connected to the violin.
Yeah.
And I wondered what it was like to play it. It's the
Yeah.
first time I ever saw a violin up close. And so my father came home from work that day, and I told him what I had done. And he said, "Why are you looking at that old thing?" You know? And I found out that, he just put it up to his chin, and he took the bow, and I could see he was off in another space for a moment. And then he put it away. He said, "Don't look at it again." So,
Yeah.
so it was years later. I promised myself then I was going to somehow take lessons on my father's violin, but it took me a long time. I didn't have any music education in my school, and my parents couldn't afford lessons. So it wasn't until I was an adult when I decided I wanted for my graduation present to take music lessons. And at that time, my father's violin was off in the west someplace, but I did rent a violin initially. But then I was able to get my father's violin back, and I refurbished it, and I took lessons. And and so that was the beginning of saying, okay, I don't know if I'll be successful. I don't know if I will have this opportunity to actually play it. But my father, I asked him, why don't you play this violin anymore? And he said, oh, my fingers got too fat when I was an adult and I couldn't play it anymore. But I know my mother, who is the great storyteller, she told me that my father had some really big challenges with his parents. And it started when he was a young boy, maybe 5 or 6, and the neighborhood music school came around to the homes trying to recruit some new students. And it
Yeah.
turned out my father had perfect pitch. He was tested,
Ah,
and so
wow.
was his sister. So my grandparents were European. My grandfather from Hungary, and he loved the Hungarian Rhapsodies. So they
Mm,
bought a violin, a piano, and they both had lessons, music lessons for many years. Now, my father, he loved baseball and he wanted to play with his friends, but he wasn't allowed to because it would hurt his fingers.
right.
And that's what my grandfather would say. And so one day he was watching his friends play baseball and he got in trouble and he got punished severely. And and so he grew to really see the violin as a curse as he got older rather than
Mm.
something that was a gift. And he wanted a baseball bat for his birthday and he got a violin bow instead. And it's probably the same one that I still have, upstairs
Yeah.
in my bedroom. But so that started him off with this music, and he was successful. And but he always had this idea that with perfect pitch, he couldn't stand like to go listen to people play it like at graduation or something. It
Oh,
hurt his ears. He
yes.
told me that I didn't have perfect pitch for sure when he heard me play, and
Oh,
oh, you'll never be able to be in an orchestra. And he was really projecting onto me
yeah.
um, his life and his failure. But that
Yeah.
wasn't my intention to be a musician and to play in an orchestra. I was practicing, trying my best, but I didn't have perfect pitch. I didn't have his gift. And at one point, my father said, "You're just wasting your time." And as it
Oh,
turned out, after many years of taking lessons, my teacher was saying the same thing. Well, I've done all I could do with you, but maybe you should go on to another teacher. And this was at a time when I I thought, well, maybe I'll be in the recital that's at the end of the year, which the teacher had. And so I decided to accept this recital invitation despite my challenges. And then I was kind of sorry for it because I went to the practice in this one room studio and it was terrible. It was a trio. I was the first violinist, and my teacher played the viola, and then there was a pianist accompanist in this little room. I was practicing my recital piece, and there was only one other adult in the whole group. So the teacher gave me the easier part, she thought. So at any rate, I
yeah.
tried to play it with them, and she stopped and she said, "This is horrible. This is really bad. You're
Uh,
so out of tune. I don't know where you are." And and my heart just dropped, right? I'm
yeah.
thinking, oh no, now I have to go on stage next week and play this.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
it was a little discouraging as I was leaving. And she said, "You go home and practice, but I don't give much hope to you, you know." So I left, and as I'm leaving, this little girl, she's about 5 years old, a child prodigy, comes in with a little pint-sized violin and a bow, and she's going to be the next person to practice, right? And I said, "Oh,
Yeah.
great." So I was thinking maybe I'll just cancel this, invitation. But when I got home, I realized, wait a minute here. I think I can do this. I had a friend who was a cellist, and I asked her if she would help me with the music, and she did. We stayed up late at night
Mm,
playing, and she made me stay in tune and showed me what to do,
yeah.
some techniques. And she was very advanced in her music. And so we practiced that way. But I also got a CD of the music that I was going to play, and I practiced along with that. And of course, I did my mental rehearsal and my positive self talk and used Mindful Toughness skill sets. So what happened with that was I just set myself up. I'm going to do fine. And I'm thinking, I was writing my doctoral dissertation at that time by now. And I'm thinking, I have to get through this accomplishment. My father had already died some years earlier, but I was telling him, in spirit, Dad, I'm doing this no matter what you said. So the day of the recital, I was prepared and I'm sitting in the audience, and the people ahead of me, fortunately I was towards kind of the middle of the recital, so the people ahead of me, they were all fouling up the music, even the child prodigy. And this other adult who my teacher said was much better than I was,
Yeah.
he screwed up so much that the teacher stopped his performance midway and said, "You're so out of tune, I can't play with you. No, pretty much go sit down and shut up." And I'm
Wow.
thinking, oh my goodness, I'm next. But I got up there, I did my breathing, I focused, and I played beautifully. My
Mm,
teacher was shocked. She was
mm,
shocked. She just, her mouth was agape, and she said, "I
mm.
can't believe it," in front of the audience, right?
Right.
And so she said, "You even played vibrato. It's like, how did you do this?" So
Yeah.
later on, she had asked
Mm,
me, "Well, did you use that hypnosis, that you told me about?" And I said, "Yes," in my
yeah,
mental rehearsal. She said,
yeah,
"You played better than anybody in the class." That was a
yeah,
big honor. Here I
right.
was eating cookies and drinking punch at the party afterwards with the,
Yeah.
with the little kids, right? And
Mhm, mhm.
so that inspired me. I did it, and of course, I told my father, "See, Dad, when you focus and you believe in yourself, no matter
Mm,
what." But what
mm,
my dad didn't realize was I wasn't in it to be in an orchestra or to be a concert violinist. I had already used music in my work because I knew about entrainment and I knew about how to use music to help my clients get in the zone, along with using self-hypnosis and teaching my clients that. So I always used music with
mm,
my work.
mm,
So that was my intention, to help other people and to use music to help them entrain. So they'd come in with this very high pulse and very anxious, and I'd help them with music that was composed that way to bring down your pulse. As I play it, it goes from higher pulse to a lower one, and that opened them up to being receptive to what I would say. So I did that for many years, and it worked really well. So that helped me and helped my clients. Just to hear the music, they're right in the zone
mm,
automatically after the first visit. And I also read about the person who created some of the music that I use. Her name is John Hoffman, and she created music like that. She was an organist, and she was set for a career playing the organ. In her college recital, she practiced alone in the church, and she's realizing, I'm a social person. I don't like being shut up in a church, practicing all these hours. And she decided right after she graduated with her organ degree that she was going to become a music therapist, and she went to school for that. And she made this beautiful music that I use. As I said, she made recordings at that time. It was a CD, initially an audio tape, and so I purchased the music from her, and so I can use it freely. But my idea was to help people, just like Janalia Hoffman decided she was going to help people lower their blood sugar, lower their blood pressure, and also help them spiritually at the same time. And she thought that was great. And then there was another man, his name was Don Campbell. I wrote about him in my book, and he wrote the book, I think it was
Oh, yeah, yeah.
The Sound of um, Silence, I think it was. But at any rate, he wrote this great book on the Roar of Silence. And
Okay.
he decided, he was also a musician, practiced many years, and he decided, wait a minute, I've learned everything I could, but I forgot how to dance. And so he had this spiritual moment when the doctor told him he had some kind of growth in his lungs, and he had this other disease that could be detrimental to his health, and he was really down. But then he decided to dance and to pound on the table and
Mm,
to get in the zone. And he was healed when he went back to the doctor. He didn't have the problem anymore. So he made a career in helping people with music because music is healing. So
mhm,
those two examples, plus all the research out there now on the brain and also on perfect pitch, right? Why do some people have perfect pitches? Very few people in the world have it, and it's because there's an enlarged auditory region in the brain, in the cortex, that allows that. And very often, people who have an Asian background have perfect pitch because there's something about the language that they learn and the intonation that they learn as children. So at any rate, my father had it. I don't know where it came from, but he was able to play really well. And my aunt did become a music teacher, piano teacher,
yeah,
um, and studied the scholarship, and that was a big deal in those days for women to advance. So
right.
she was a great music teacher. And my father, he always loved music, but he loved band music. It had nothing to do with the violin. He loved John Philip Sousa and band music like that. So, it's very interesting how these people learned. And then there's this idea of the Mozart effect in schools, where the teachers played Mozart's piano concertos, and the children calmed down. So that's a very famous study. And there are also other studies where people entrain with music, um, babies in a nursery that
Mhm,
have some kind of heart challenge. They
yeah,
put the healthy babies next to them in the bassinet, and the babies that were healthy started to have this irregularity in their hearts until they moved
mm,
them away. They were in
yeah,
training
mm,
with the beat. And that's what Janalia Hoffman speaks about in her book.
right.
And it's called Rhythmic Medicine. And and I was just so impressed with that idea that I incorporated into all my work. And then um, I read about all the composers, the famous classical composers, and I was very fortunate to come across these presentations by um, Dr. Kogan, and he studied at Juilliard, but he also went to medical school and became a psychiatrist. And he talked about Beethoven and how he had so many challenges. Oh my goodness, health issues, but also, of course, he went blind. No, hearing. He had a hearing problem. He went deaf, and so that's really challenging for a composer, right? But the thing with Beethoven was that because of it, because he really had he was called like the mad genius, but because of it, he composed music that nobody ever wrote before. Matter of
Mm,
fact, they couldn't even play it during his lifetime because they didn't have the piano, the modern piano, to really make the music sound great. And so it wasn't played until after he died, and so that was interesting to me.
yeah,
And then Chopin, and they have this story about that Dr. Kogan spoke about, and all his issues and how he left his country because of the Russian suppression, and but he made the music known, the Polonaise music known to the world. And he had a lot of health issues. Had stage fright, and he had all these other issues, petrified of death. And but he was a great teacher, a great instructor, and of course his beautiful music. So
yeah,
all these people, they wrestled through adversity, but with their musical instruments. And
mm,
then the thing was that I also looked at Rachmaninoff and his issues that he had, and how he was so challenged when he wrote his first concerto and sonata, and it really got bad reviews, and he was very upset, and he had writer's block for sure. After that, composer's block, and he went to this doctor. He used hypnosis, and so Dr. Dahl helped him to get back to health and to get his music in tune. and to have a happy life. It was very important for him to have bring joy in his life. So even though he had all these issues with health, he was able to get joy just by playing his music. So he continued. He was a famous pianist, I think it was. So at any rate, and the other person that I looked at was Gershwin, and how he was a child out on the street stealing from carts and getting into trouble. Dr. Kogan said now he would be diagnosed with ADHD and put on Adderall, right? But at that time, music just transformed his life. He didn't have any symptoms after that, and he just put all his energy, like we were talking about, psychodynamically into his music. And he wrote great pieces of music. And unfortunately, he died at a young age. I think it was 38 from a brain tumor, and from the surgery, he didn't make it through. But he was a great composer. And so those four inspirational composers had adversity and they wrestled through it, but they weren't able necessarily to take care of themselves on any level, physically, spiritually, emotionally. And but their music helped the people all around the world. you know the ninth symphony, Beethoven's Ninth Symphony, Ode to Joy, and what
Wow.
joy it brings to people, right, all around the world for all the ages. So
Yeah.
that's what was so great about the resilience of these composers. And they didn't have easy lives. They had abuse when they were children, and
Mm,
um,
mm.
diphtheria. So watching your sister die of diphtheria, that was I think Rachmaninoff.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
it really challenging things. Of course, they didn't have antibiotics like that. So, but they made it through, and the music they played for the world, and that's such an honorable thing. Um, Even if you like modern music and hip hop and all this, you have to have respect from these classical composers, and I really benefited from it. Even my piece that I played was classical music, that I had to learn and align with, and it just made me so happy that I could do that.
Yeah. Yes, Christine. And this is one of the things that really, really, really kind of caught my attention. My mind kind of focused on it, almost like this pointed focus when you said about your father criticizing you about, oh, you can't do it, and then there's this teacher too. So besides all the adversities that we have in life, and life is not easy, and then we have people around us in a sense kind of trying
Mhm.
to suppress
Yes.
the
Mhm.
gifts in us. And that's something that I don't quite understand. I have a hard time with, but I love the idea that we can go inside, we can go get the resource within ourselves, because it's there. We have so much inner power that
That's right.
isn't it? I
Mhm.
love that story though of what you
Yes,
did.
that you can overcome this adversity. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm going to become Itzhak Perlman and play the
Yeah,
violin,
yeah,
as a concert violinist, but just having that experience. And of course, it was helpful for me because I work with performing artists, and that includes musicians, and I work with dancers and actors like that. So that
right.
was important to go out there and just perform,
Mm.
uh, and also stay on beat. I took tap dancing lessons as well
Oh
as
yeah,
an adult, right?
yeah.
So that I could work with
Mm,
dancers,
mm,
and that's been a lot of fun. My parents couldn't afford
yeah.
any kind of music or dance lessons when I was a child. I remember asking my mother because my friend was in a dance recital and she had this little tutu, and I thought it was so
Oh
beautiful. I
yeah.
asked my mom, "Can I take dance lessons? Can I take piano lessons?" She said, "Christine, do you want to eat?"
Wow.
And I said,
Yeah. Yeah.
"Yes." And so that was it.
Because the note of music, yeah, to art. Oh, I know that's the thing too. A lot of times, right? That a lot of artists, creative people struggle with, this balance between practical life and the artistic life. A lot of people just give up on doing what they love creatively because they have to make ends meet and all those things. What is your vision for that? Do you think everyone can tap into their creative power and kind of balance both, the practical and
Of course you can in your own way. It doesn't mean that you'll be a musician, but I worked with this little boy years ago. He was 7 years old, and his mother brought him to me because the teacher was saying, "Oh, how stupid he is, and he
uh,
doesn't fit in with the other children in class, and oh, he's really doing bad in math, and he only talks about robots," right? This story
yeah,
is in my books, and he's only
yeah.
talking about robots all the time, and nobody cares about the robots.
Oh,
So I work with this little boy. He was so adorable, 7 years old, and he took these classes after school. He went to study how to make robots, and
hmm,
and so the first session he sat down on the floor in my office, and there was a carpet, and he was drawing on the fiber of the carpet this robot, what it looks like, and telling me
yeah.
how it works and how he was building it in class. So cute. So so I know that he was able to get in the zone because I took him down this flight of stairs to go deeper into the hypnotic state. And he opened his eyes and he said, "I have a problem," because he
Oh,
wasn't able to say problem.
yeah,
And I said, "What's that?" And he said, "I have to hold on to the railing when I go down the stairs." So I know he was really in the zone imagining this. And then
yeah,
he said to me one day when he came, I just worked for a short period of time, but he was so happy to discuss his robots. And then one day he confided in me and he said, "I'm at school and we have gym class, and nobody ever picks me to play soccer, when we have to play it in the gym class. Nobody, they pass over me, and the teacher has to select me for put on a team because nobody wants me." So
yeah.
I said to him, "Well, would you like to learn how to play soccer? I can show you what to do using the power of your mind." So,
Mm,
yes, he said.
yeah.
And then he was able to learn how to focus and score. I taught him what to do in just this one session. And I said, "You do this, you do your breathing," because I was teaching
Mm,
that
mm,
for him to do better in math, which he did improve upon, right?
yes.
Despite the teacher who said that he should be on drugs. So at
Oh,
any rate, he came back the next week. He decided, I said, "You can do this if you want. Just think about what I said and practice it at
yeah.
home." So he came back the next week and he was so excited. I said, "What happened?" He said, "Well, I did what you told me, and then nobody wanted to pick me." The teacher had to put me on the team. But then when nobody was looking, I scored a goal. Right?
Yes.
And everybody was so surprised. And then
Yeah.
the next time they picked him, he was so happy. Right?
Oh, that is
They wanted
amazing.
him to be on the team. So that, along with his robots,
Mm,
and I say he's probably working for NASA now,
ah,
as a roboticist, and
yeah.
had this great technical mind,
Mm,
to have such interest in that as a young boy and such imagination. So yes, you can accomplish your goal. It
mm,
doesn't mean that he's going to, be on a major league soccer team, when he grows up, but he
right.
can have that memory and use that as a mental recall that this is possible, that you can score even though you're the worst person on the team according to everybody on the team.
Mm,
And so
mm,
I love that story because there's so much potential in that. So he did do better in school, but he also scored in soccer.
right. Thanks to you and your guidance. You see, that's what we need. That's what Christine gets me. Well, it's something that I don't understand because I have a hard time understanding why people would try to put down children or anybody
Mm.
like around. It doesn't make any sense to me. It maybe that's why I love doing this work of being around coaches like you and psychologists and authors and all kinds of beautiful people that instead of criticizing others and trying to somehow show them what they don't have, they do quite the opposite. They try to bring the gifts out of people. Like they just guide them into become what they are meant to become in this lifetime. And to me, when you talk about the zone, it makes me think about the flow of life, like the
Mhm,
soul. That's what I think
mhm.
about. It comes to me like as an imagery, like the,
And you can think of it as an orchestra, and that everybody
yeah,
has to play together. And
right.
also the conductor has to be calm and
Mm,
measured, so that people can train with him, the members of the orchestra, to have beautiful music. It just doesn't come about with discordant notes and dissonant notes, and and also the
mm,
beat of it just doesn't feel right. It's like when you watch a movie and there's scary music, horror movie,
yeah,
and it scares you, right? Or there's joyful music, and also when you think about it, music just fills the air.
oh,
And at this time of the year, you go into the shopping in the store, and there's jingle bells and all this music,
yeah,
and people are feeling lighthearted and relieved somehow that it's a season where we can all communicate, and everybody wants to
mm,
connect with each other,
mm,
and it's just a great time of the year. So to talk about music and its health issues, and also when you're a child, you can learn so much from music. It helps you with vocalization. It helps you with your memory, coordination. So
right,
many benefits from it, and also um, there are studies that show that if you play a musical instrument even into maturity, it can help you in so many ways, and you improve your health, and also prevent hearing loss. So we have so many things that we know about music, but yet a lot of the music programs in schools are now canceled because of
oh,
funding, and so we're not getting the same benefit that to
right,
give to our children.
right,
Something that I wished I could have done when I was a child, but I did make up for it as an adult, at
yeah,
least to experience it, right? So, and I've worked with many people to help them to heal through health issues, and one of them I wrote about in my book. Well, actually, four of them, and one I would like to discuss. Her name was Alana. It's not her real name, but the name I gave her. And she came to me because she wasn't able to drive, and she was working in a mall where she had to drive to the mall on a highway. And her stepmother was busy taking care of her uncle, and because he was ill, and so she had nobody to drive her. So I was referred to her, and somebody referred her to me, and she said, "Now I'm 21, and I need to have more independence." But what happened with Alana was when she was a teenager, when she was 17, she had just gotten her license, and on that day, she found out that her father had fourth stage lung cancer.
oh,
And with that, she had a car accident. And so she never got in the passengers in the driver's
mm,
seat
mm,
again.
yeah,
And now she was 17 then and 21 now when I saw her. And
yeah,
so
yeah,
so she was so fearful, and she told me she needs to have this independence. It's time. Um, so, at any rate, I worked with her with the mindful toughness techniques, but we also went back in time to when she was younger. And it turns out she was a composer, she was a solo guitarist, she
yeah,
was a musician, and an artist, And she said, "Oh, but those things are so easy to perform on stage. But
mm,
driving is so hard, right?
no,
Because of this mental block."
yeah,
She felt
yeah,
very sad missing her father. She had a big
yeah,
tattoo on her left arm with his likeness to stay close to her dad. She,
mm,
she loved him. He took care of her, because the parents were divorced,
yeah,
and so she just couldn't do it. But with these techniques and the mental rehearsal, I was able to help her to get in the car behind the steering wheel, and to gradually back
mm,
back up and move forward and go around the block. and eventually to go on the highway. But not only that, she was able to compose music, she was able to draw, and she applied to school for art therapy and drove there herself, to the application. And also, I found out some months later that she was driving all over the place and nobody would ever know that she had this challenge, that she was so fearful even
Yeah.
to sit behind the steering wheel. And it was very simple for her because she just followed my directions. Okay, the mental rehearsal, the mental recall. I
Mhm.
used the mental recall, of course, when she was confident on the stage, performing and
Yeah.
singing her own music that she composed. And also, she was a salesperson and she was very confident doing that. So, those
Mhm.
were her mental recall moments that she
Mhm.
could bring back when she's sitting in the car. And then also to imagine herself being very creative with her artwork and
Mhm.
expressing her feelings through her compositions. So this helped her greatly. And within a short period of time, she was driving, and I'm sure she's driving on the highway to success now,
Mhm.
just using these techniques.
Yes. Wow. That is so beautiful to hear. We have 5 minutes. And we'll end
Mhm.
in 5 minutes, Christine. But I want to make a comment, and then I want to mention your websites too. So I just love the idea that we have all these tools, and that's the thing that a lot of us sometimes forget, that we have people like you, so many. I call them almost like helpers of the soul. They are soul uplifters,
Mhm. Yes.
people that can just change the world just because they change themselves, because they have done to themselves too. So I really thank you for that, and for the reminder for all of us who are watching this, it is that the possibility of growing, of learning, of becoming something that we really meant to become in this lifetime, it is very much possible. We can do it. Of course, as you said beautifully too, we can do it together. Like music,
Mhm.
it's beautiful music. It's parts playing together in harmony, isn't it,
We
Christine?
dance together, we're community, having fun. It's good exercise. It's good for your brain. It's good for your heart. And
Right.
also for your soul, as we're discussing here.
Yeah, that's it. So, what a beautiful ending in a sense, right? Like bringing music as this symphony of life to being the orchestra of life playing right here, right now. And sometimes we feel blocked, we feel disconnected from the flow, from the zone of life, because we
Yes.
kind of, in a sense, we need some work. That's okay too, right, Christine? It's part of
That's
life.
okay. As I said in my speaking points, my dad was healed eventually before he died. He heard me play the violin with my daughter who's on the piano. He's holding his ears like this and saying,
Yeah.
"Oh, you have bad pitch." And
Yeah.
he was in a wheelchair. And
Right.
but I put his violin in his arms, and I could see him reminiscing about giving
Mm,
concerts with his sister. And I
mm,
do believe he was healed just
mm,
by that,
mm.
that the healing touched him just with the memory of playing the music. And my
Right.
sister also, who,
Ah,
as I said, she was in a memory care facility. She was a soprano and sang all her life to entertain and help people with
right.
music and song and dance.
Right.
And so she couldn't even remember my name at the end of her life. She couldn't remember anything with Lewy body dementia, but
Right.
she sang right until the end. She remembered the words
Mm,
and blasted out on the 4th of July,
mm,
the year she died, with God Bless America, remembering all the words. So
yeah.
that was such a gift to me and to her because she had that pride that she remembered the music and
Mm,
she entertained all the people there at the memory care facility, which was amazing.
mm. I remember that. This is one of the things that makes me think about music. Kind of is the memory. Um, the memory of music is actually beyond the brain, so it's like it's an entire bodies in our cells. Kind of, it penetrates everything. But I would say it's the soul too. It's like this direct contact with the soul, which is not. It might not be localized even. It's
Hmm.
just here.
Yeah, where is it? Where is the
Right, we
soul?
cannot touch it anyways, but it is
Right?
here.
Hmm.
Huh. Wow, how amazing. What a beautiful evidence. This is something that's scientific, right, Christine?
Yes, it
Not just
is.
a story.
It's now that we have the instruments to measure and to discover. So now we're learning how music benefits us, neuroscientifically. But we know from ancient Greece that they played musical instruments, and they did this to help people to heal.
Right,
So this has
right.
been forever with human beings. And you think of the songs of birds, and you think of, there are
Mhm.
many ways to have song, not just with musical instruments.
Yes, right. The birds. I wake up with them every day and I start singing. As soon as I hear them,
See,
I start singing myself, trying to imitate them, the pitch. Like, oh my God. I mean, it's kind of funny, but isn't it part of life too? Having fun, playing with
that's right.
nature,
It's
right?
part of
That's what I
life.
do.
Hopefully, there's some fun in it. It's not all work and toil, but I
Right.
like to have fun with this idea that, so people say you can't do this or you can't do that. And
Mm,
from the
mm,
time I was a little
mm.
kid, if somebody told me I couldn't do something, watch out, I was going to
You
accomplish
would
it.
just do it.
Like winning the Queen's skating championship when my father told me there are no sports for girls.
You did it. Yeah. You see, I love that about you and any other human being, who dare to have the courage to be themselves. Basically, that's what it is. I want to be me, and I have this potential, so why not? And that's the thing about being also sovereign. That's something that I love about, this idea that we can be ourselves. We don't have to comply, to be part of of the collective, in a sense of family and society. We don't need to this is one of the things I believe, has been my own case too, that kind of suppresses a lot of a sovereign soul, our
Yes. Well,
creativity.
a lot of times that comes from the fact that the person who's talking to you hasn't achieved success, and they're
Right,
projecting that onto you. And you have to realize that at some point. It's not
right.
done out of love or guidance. It's done because they weren't successful. I see that a lot with sports and
Yes,
the wrestlers, the baseball players, and the fathers saying, "You better win. How come? What's wrong with you?" And it's
uh,
because they didn't achieve success. And yes, you want this for your children, but you have to nurture them and put yourself in their shoes. And
right.
sometimes they don't do that, and it's very negative. But fortunately, if
Yeah.
they learn the techniques I show them, they do succeed. And then
Mm,
that makes everybody happy. Of course, it feels better to win than to lose. But we have to remember that the strongest storms make the best sailors. So you have to allow your children
mm.
to face adversity so they can learn what to do and what not to do to win.
Wow, another beautiful message. So true. It's so, so true. I just had an interview. Gosh, gotta go. But I just had an interview with the father who has 3 kids, and he's super successful and creative. He's a surgeon, and he's an author. He's a TEDx speaker, and all this. And his kids, they don't understand that. They kind of wish he was in the house more, like a father, more present, and he wouldn't be always working, doing these things. But I just commend him for that. And I admire him from being sovereign and still doing what he's meant to do in this life. I mean,
Yes, he's
hopefully his
working with
kids will
people.
understand. Hopefully.
As a surgeon, he's working with people. I mean,
I,
surgeons are at the top of the echelon of doctors.
yeah,
They have great hands, and I admire surgeons.
right,
And
right.
sometimes you don't have to have great interpersonal relations with your surgeon, but you want to know him to be confident, right? And
Yes,
so you have to
yes.
keep that in mind. I know that as a nurse, I want to pick the best doctor who can do the surgery.
Right, right. So that says something about, yeah, he's very competent in so many ways, but he's not understood though by his family. So that's something we were having a conversation about this here, like, oh, and maybe he'll write a short story trying to kind of show to to his children that he's living his own potential, and this is important to him.
Yes, well,
Yeah,
it is important, and we have to maintain our position as parents. I know that for a fact.
right.
Um, I'm still the mother to my children, and and judge by, is this gravy thick enough, or
Yeah.
on Thanksgiving and things like that.
Right.
But I have to, now that my children are raised. Of course, they're older and they have families of their own. I realized that I had to be myself, but I did give a lot to my family, my children, to help them be the people they are today. In some way, this doctor will see that in their children. Maybe they'll say one day, Dad, I want to be a doctor as well, a
Mm.
surgeon.
That's it. I think that's the best gift legacy that you can leave for your children. Just you living the life that you're meant to live, living your dreams, living your potential. I think that, to me, I'm not a mother, but I see that as the biggest gift and legacy that you can leave for children. That you have done what you came here to do, so they can do the
That's
same
right.
thing. Yeah,
It's a
I just,
it's a mission for me, so it goes beyond just a job or
mm,
work. It's a
yeah.
mission, and I've had this my whole life, to know that there's something I have to do, um, and it has to do with helping people, and that started at a very early age.
Right. Thank you, Christine. Yeah, thank you for the beautiful inspiration that you are at so many levels. Thank you. Thank you so much again.
You're welcome.
Thank you. So at the end of our conversation, I want to mention the website. So two websites, drchristinesilverstein.com and also idealperformance.net. So I also want to mention that she was translating her book, Wrestling Through Adversity, into Arabic. And then it's finally published. Congratulations.
Yes,
I
it was being
know.
published January 13th. And so I want everybody to know, in the Arab speaking population, that the book, that's, I think, very valuable for our kids, is available for those even over there in Gaza and war torn countries, and in the United States, because we have such a turmoil. And I believe that my book is helping student athletes and parents. If you look at the reviews on Amazon and Goodreads,
Yeah.
you'll find that it's very helpful. And the earlier we teach our children this, the better it is for them.
Right. Yes, a billion times that. So yeah, correction, January 13th.
January 13th, it's scheduled for launch. And I'm working now to, you might hear some ads in Arabic even
Oh,
that are promoting the launch. And I expect it to be a great success, simply because it's the power of the universe to show you what you
mm,
can do. You don't have to wait for the government to take care of you with programs when there's no funding, and you're not learning what you need to learn at school. And just because they have Narcan boxes in the schools to prevent overdose of drugs doesn't mean that you have to have the mental instability to be, a victim of substance abuse.
mm,
You can prevent it using these techniques and learning at a very young age what to do to help yourself to heal, and also to
mm.
grow and get on that highway to success.
Yes, beautiful. Thank you so much again, Christine, for your beautiful presence, for the inspiration they are
Thank
to
you.
me and everybody else, and for this energy, this light, this flame of the soul that you keep it alive almost at every day. I see that in you every time we talk. I mean, you just always radiant and energized by this light. I can feel it, and I cannot help it but um, have that as my main guide, the guide of our inner self. So thank you so much for coming from that
You're
place.
welcome. It was fun to reunite. And
Yeah,
also, of course, I wish you success with your new venture and in healing.
thank you. We'll be in touch again. Bye for now. Take good care, but we'll be in touch again. We'll definitely talk again. Bye for now, dear Christine.
Okay. Have a good
Aloha.
evening now.
You
Bye.
too.